There are two kinds of people in this world. Either you're doing things you know you shouldn't, or you're not doing things you know you should. Guess what? We're both. Hi, I'm Marcy Barker, life and business coach, aka your loving kick in the pants. This podcast is here to help you become accountable with aligned action and become boss-minded while growing a business without sacrificing what matters most. Let's dive in. Hello, my beautiful people. Today on this podcast, we are going to talk about imposter syndrome. And before we dive in, disclaimer, I know that I'm going to be talking about imposter syndrome, but it's like if I have to talk to you about it once and we can be done with it, that would be ideal. But the fact that imposter syndrome is a topic that comes up a lot, especially for women, it's like we have to address it, and I have my take on it. So much so that I wrote a story in my book called Overcoming Imposter Syndrome. And I want to start off, you guys probably saw that clip. It went viral a while ago, but it was by Ilona Maher. I think that's her name. It's been a while since I saw the clip, and it's been a while since she popped up in my feed. But she is amazing. She is the Olympic player for rugby, and she's just got this confidence that is out into outer space. Like, it is amazing because she is just fully confident in who she is and what she's good at and loving herself. And she's just one of the perfect role models. And there was a video that went around that a news reporter was asking her if she deals with imposter syndrome. And she straight up says, I don't have that.
How do you overcome imposter syndrome?
I don't have that.
Really?
No, I don't know what that. It's like where you don't feel like you deserve it.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I have it.
Okay, how is that possible? I feel like imposter syndrome ruins my life sometimes.
I feel like I deserve what I've gotten. I think that I've worked very hard, even in the rugby space. Like, I've played sports my whole life. I went and played rugby at, South Burlington High School, and then I made the late decision to play rugby here, and then I transferred here to play rugby. And then I do all the work off the field. I posted videos consistently from Tokyo till now. I posted many videos a day. I put myself out there. I put my whole personality, my whole everything out there.
So basically you're just saying, don't even acknowledge it.
I just don't think I have that.
I love it.
Which I think is also like people are told sometimes to feel like they have that imposter syndrome. But it's okay to be proud of what you've done. It's okay to believe you deserve something because you've put in the work for it.
Yes, finally. I'm so grateful to hear of somebody who's like, no, that's just not a thing for me. Because I feel the same way, and I have felt this way for a long, long time, but I've always had a hard time articulating it because not many people can relate to this, because you do have to have a level of confidence where you're like, nope, I just don't even subscribe to that narrative because it just doesn't exist in my world anymore. And as I'm saying this now too, I hope that if you're listening to this and you do deal with imposter syndrome, or you do have a low level of confidence, or you question yourself a lot, or you still have a lot of beliefs that make you feel like you kind of suck, whether it's from other people's crap that they've said to you, I want you to know that overcoming imposter syndrome is totally a thing. And you can get to a place where you're like, nope, I just don't even believe that. I don't subscribe to it. It doesn't benefit me. And the sooner I can say, no, thank you, the better off you'll be. So I wrote about this in my book. And when I wrote about this story, I was really grateful because I have a friend who's a therapist. And I was like, I need to send this to you and I need to get your take on it, because I'm not a therapist. I've been in therapy and I have benefited from a ton of personal development. And I've even taken a class about emotional intelligence and things like that. But what's really important is that the sooner you believe that you can overcome imposter syndrome, the sooner you will have a confidence level that you're like, you can't even touch me. And there's a difference between being confident and being prideful. And trust me, I know the difference, because if you guys remember from my first book and a lot of my stories, my dad used to call me Satan. Like, my dad would compare me to Satan, because the thing that we have in common, me and Satan, we have this in common. We have no humility. That's what my dad used to tell me. That was a thought and belief that was pushed on me that I was like, nope, I'm not going to adopt this because that is ridiculous. So a little bit of backstory. I write about this in my first book. It's called Standing Up, and it's in the humility chapter. And I've studied humility in depth because there was one time where I was at my mom and dad's house. I walked over there from my house. I had one of my kids with me, and it got really, really rainy. And I called my mom and I said, "Can you pick us up?" And she picked us up, and we were drenched. So we took off as many clothes as we comfortably could, and we stuck them in the washer, and we sat on the couch, and we were just drying off. And my dad was getting so mad because he couldn't find a fish tank filter for his fish tank. His fish tank was getting really dirty. He was trying to find it, and he was looking all over for it, and he couldn't find it. And this was shortly after COVID happened too. So my mom said, I moved some stuff around because I had to get on some calls and I didn't want my background to be really dirty. And he got so mad that he couldn't find it. And when he was getting mad, we were like, chill out. We can help you. We can solve this problem. And he was just getting mad. No, you don't argue with me and you don't touch my stuff. And we were like, Dad, chill out. Like, keep in mind, I was a full grown adult, over 30 years old, trying to help my dad solve this problem. And he's like, you don't tell me what to do and you don't argue with me. And he was just going off the rails. And I just was like, this is crazy. And my little brother was like, you need to stop yelling at us. And I was like, Dad, we're pretty smart people. Like, I think we can all solve this problem together. And we just kept talking. And he was like, kind of like, what gives you the right to tell me what to do? And I was like, Dad, I'm a smart person. And guess what? You and Mom raised me to be a smart person. Like, I'm pretty awesome. I have a good life. I run a good business. My family is great. I'm in a good marriage. I was like, these are all things that you should listen to me because you helped create how awesome I am. And he said, so you think you're better than everybody? And I was like, oh my goodness, this is so crazy. And because we were at my parents' house and half my clothes were in the dryer, I was kind of stuck. And I said, if my clothes weren't in the dryer, I would leave right now. And my husband pulled up because they were going to meet us at my parents' house. And I was like, we're leaving. I got all of my clothes from the dryer. And as soon as one of my daughters opened the door and said, hi, I said, turn around, we're leaving. We're not staying here. And then that was it. That was the end of the story. Until a couple weeks later, it was Father's Day. And I was like, I should probably be a good daughter. I should go visit my dad. And we sat in the backyard. You know, we had some watermelon. We had a potluck, whatever it is. And we got into a conversation. And my dad said, Marcy, what characteristic can Satan not have? And I was like, beauty. He doesn't have a body. He can't even do anything. And my dad said, no, humility, and walked away. And I was like, what is going on? That was so odd for him to just put that down and then leave. And I asked my mom, I was like, what was all that about? And she's like, oh, well, he's just in one of his moods, blah, blah, blah. Didn't really take it deeper. And I left thinking, wow, my dad really thinks I'm like Satan. Like, my dad thinks that I have no humility and that's the thing that I have in common with Satan. And there was more to the conversation, but I had to go through a lot of healing to be like, am I like Satan? Am I so prideful? Or did I have a level of confidence in what I built and who I was and who I became? Like, there is totally a difference. So I have come to a place where I have a high level of confidence because I've worked through these things. But it's like, let me tell you exactly how to overcome imposter syndrome. Okay. Now, in this story, that story that I just told you was in my book, The Accountability Code. That's this book, which you guys can get for free, which you probably know already. But this book, Becoming Boss Minded, I talk about having the ability to overcome imposter syndrome because when you are building a business, this is a real thing that people talk about. They're like, oh, you're having a hard time leveling up because you feel like an imposter. And I'm like, why would anybody feel like an imposter when they're actively working to build a business? And in my eyes, these two just do not coincide. They just do not fit. So I want to tell you guys why they don't, why you can't be actively building a business in your best interest with your best intentions and still be a fraud. Like, it just doesn't work. So if you continue to believe that imposter syndrome is a thing for you, then you are actively feeding into a narrative that is hurting you. Okay. So the very first step, I want to share another story where it's in the book, and maybe I'll save this for another time, but there have been 2 times in my life where I truly felt inadequate. And when you feel inadequate with your skills, that's when a lot of depressive thoughts can feed in, or that's when a lot of discouraging thoughts can creep into. So in this story, I talk about, there are times in my life where I was like questioning myself. And when you question yourself, that's when the negative thoughts creep in and you completely have to avoid it. But here's how you're going to avoid it, okay? So imposter syndrome is defined by Merriam-Webster as a psychological condition that is characterized by persistent doubt concerning one's abilities or accomplishments, accompanied by the fear of being exposed as a fraud despite evidence of one's ongoing success. Okay, now that is a big definition. So in here, I break it down, and there's 4 different parts to this definition. So the first one is a psychological condition. This means this is like a mindset, and you can change it. You can change the way that you believe. So that's the first thing, is we have to agree that we can change our beliefs about a certain situation. The second thing is persistent doubt. And the key word here is persistent, because it's okay to doubt yourself. It's okay to be a little bit scared to do stuff. But if you constantly are like, I'm scared to do that, I'm scared to do that, I'm scared to do that, it's like that, nothing makes you shrivel up more than persistent doubt. So we talk about that in the definition. Hey, my beautiful people. If you're loving these episodes, you'll want the full experience. I've bundled both of my books, The Accountability Code and Becoming Boss Minded, into one powerful package. You'll get instant access to the audiobooks and ebooks so you can learn and grow anytime, anywhere. Head to bossminded.com and grab the book bundle now. It's the perfect way to stay inspired between episodes. All right, let's dive back in. The other part of this is honesty. So this says the fear of being exposed as a fraud. So if you were honest, like I was with my dad, I was like, actually, I've built a pretty good life. I have great kids. I'm in a great marriage. I built a business. All of those things were true. So there was no room for him to fight me on that or to discourage what I've gone through, because the truth is the things that I said, that's true. So exposed to being a fraud, a fear of being exposed, you have to be honest, because if you're being honest, like, what are you scared that people are going to see? That you're a hard worker and that you're trying? There's only the fear of being exposed if you're actually doing something wrong, if you're lying. So we talk about that too. And the last thing is being exposed as a fraud despite evidence of one's ongoing success. So ongoing success is something that you have to continually accept evidence for. So when it comes to back to that video about Ilona Maher, I hope I'm saying her name correctly, but she's just like, why would I not believe that I deserve these things? Like, I work really hard. I've worked really hard to get where I am. And she fully owned everything that she's been through to get where she is. And that's what we have to do too. So there's 4 different things that are like anecdotes to this definition of imposter syndrome, where if you do these things, you're going to have such a high level of confidence, and the ability for somebody to tear you down, it's like, it's not even going to exist. There might be little doubts here and there, but not persistent doubt. There might be things you're trying to do, but it's not like you're being dishonest about it. And there might be accomplishments that you have in your life that you're like, was that really me? Or were there other people involved that helped me get there? And it's possible to have all of that be a part of what you're working on. The first thing that you have to do to overcome imposter syndrome is to prevent a negative psychological condition. Now, this might be easy for you if you're a naturally positive person. It might be a little bit difficult for you if you find that you deal with depressive thoughts or you don't have a very good environment. But the very first thing that you have to recognize is that preventing a negative psychological condition is in your control. You can go and talk to people who believe in you. You can talk to people who are successful. You can talk to people who make you feel good. All of those things are going to help you stay in a situation where things feel good and you believe in who you are and who you're becoming. So that's the first thing. The second thing is overcoming persistent doubt. Now, this one is probably my favorite because I'm an accountability coach and I'm loving kicking the pants. The very best way to overcome persistent doubt is to have clarity in your abilities and certainty in what you're able to do. So if I was going to talk about like getting better at tennis, for example, overcoming persistent doubt, like every time I serve the ball, if I'm scared that it's not going to go over, what do I need to do? I have to practice serving. I have to put in the reps and I have to try and I have to ask for feedback. And when I get more certain in my skills, every time I serve the ball, I'm going to be less doubtful that it's going to work. So overcoming persistent doubt means you got to practice the skill. If you want to speak on stage, if you want to write a book, if you want to be better at social media, you just have to practice so that you can have an accurate idea of the work that you're putting out there. And I can tell you what, when you accurately assess what you're doing and you get feedback, like you're going to see that you improve. When you put in the reps, there's no reason why you wouldn't improve. So overcoming persistent doubt is putting in the work, just practicing what you want to get better at. Now, the third thing we talked about is honesty. And this is just don't be a fraud. Okay. when it comes to fear of being exposed, why would you be scared of people knowing the truth? If the truth was, I work hard, I'm trying, I'm learning a new skill, and it might be scary because you're scared of being judged. But again, if you're pairing this with surrounding yourself with positive people, the chances of you being scared about people knowing the truth is so low because you're going to be in a safe environment to fail and to try things and to know that you can get better. So it's like, if you were doing things that you know were wrong, of course you wouldn't want people to know. But if you were trying to get better at something and you wanted to speak from stage or get better at social media, it would be okay for people to see you grow. Now, fear of being seen, that might be a little bit different, but when it comes to what you're building, if you're doing it honestly, that's the kind of light that attracts the right people to you. So don't be a fraud. This really is like, you have to internally ask yourself if what you're doing is honest progress or if you're trying to step on people to get what you want. Anyway, you guys just have to read this. You have to read this story because I'm having a hard time articulating it here. But the reality is you just have to be honest with your efforts. That's it. Because when you're honest with your efforts, people like that. And that's invited. And that creates a safe place to grow. The last thing is accept evidence. So accepting evidence is, let's say, my dad is like, why are you telling me what to do? And it's like, actually, a lot of people come to me to ask me what to do, Dad. Like, people pay me to tell them what to do. So I'm going to accept that as evidence and disagree with your evaluation that I don't have any ability to tell you what to do. So accepting evidence is also, I'm thinking about all the times that somebody told me I was a good mom. It's like, I'm going to choose to believe that, and I'm going to identify as somebody who is a good mom because I believe other people. I don't believe that everybody who's ever told me I'm a good mom has lied to me. I just don't believe that because I think that's ridiculous. So accepting evidence is really saying, like, I'm taking credit for the things that I'm learning. I'm taking credit for the things that I have built. And I'm taking credit for the work that I've done. So those 4 things can help you overcome imposter syndrome. But I want you to know, like, in any of those 4 steps, if you are having a hard time practicing those things, there's a way to overcome all of it. Like, all of these things are in your control, and there might be different parts of imposter syndrome where you might be worried about it. But in this story, which I didn't cover at the beginning, but it probably would have been helpful, a lot of people use imposter syndrome wrong. Because imposter syndrome is not about getting into a new space and being scared. Imposter syndrome, by definition, is the fear of being exposed and continually talking crap on yourself and continually disregarding the things that you're doing and choosing to engage in sources that are just not helpful. If you look at imposter syndrome by the direct definition, we'd actually have to be doing a lot of damage to fully believe that we're in imposter syndrome. But if you are here trying to build a business and you're trying to become better at what you want to do, and you are in the uncomfortable space of a new comfort zone, like, you're in the right place. That is not overcoming imposter syndrome. That is literally like you just doing better. There's no imposter to even begin with, which is why we can say that doesn't even exist for me. Anything having to do with an imposter is like, that doesn't exist, because here I am. I'm just an entrepreneur trying to build her business as best as she can. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing I should be scared about being exposed in my journey. Like, it just doesn't even exist. So I hope that you guys will get this. If you haven't yet, you guys can go through the full story, because I do talk about in the story one of those 2 times that I have ever felt so inadequate. And it was actually a time where I was like doubled over crying at my computer because I was scared. I was scared that people were going to think something about me that wasn't true. I was scared that somebody was going to think something about me that was the opposite of what I was building. And I hope you guys will read this in the story, because going through that situation, it was a big, big confidence boost for me to actually know what building a business requires and what kind of personal growth and honesty within myself is required so I can level up to the next step. So if you're dealing with imposter syndrome, I want you to know I will be your loving kick in the pants, but there's also a very logical way to change the mindset behind you being scared. And when it comes to becoming boss-minded, it's like, just try. You just got to try. Those 4 things that we talked about, you don't have to master them all at once, but you do have to be willing to say, you know what, I do want to get better and I do want to tackle my persistent doubt, or I do want to tackle some of these things I've been a little bit dishonest about, or I do want to tackle the environments I'm hanging out with because I want more friends that are a safe place who also believe in me, or I want to do better about accepting evidence that I am doing a good job. Like pick one and just start. And then pretty soon you can be just like my girl, Ilona, and have a level of confidence that really just speaks loud. And the only thing I'm afraid of is if I said her name wrong this whole entire time because it's been a while, but she definitely is making an impact. And I hope that as you listen to this podcast and you think about it throughout the week, that you will find people who help you become a better version of yourself, because really that's what it's all about. So I'll see y'all next week for another episode of Your Loving Kick in the Pants. All right, my friends, after I recorded that whole podcast, I looked up how to say Ilona Maher. That's how you say your name. I should have looked it up before I started the podcast, but for your enjoyment, listen to the rest of the podcast as we talk about overcoming imposter syndrome. Thanks for tuning in, friend. If this episode gave you value, don't just keep it to yourself. Share it with someone in your circle who's ready to wake up, show up, and grow their business without sacrificing what matters most. When you do, you're not just helping them, you're building your network of like-minded leaders. And I'll say this plainly, leaving a kind review matters more than you know. It helps more people find the show and it keeps the momentum going. So pause for a moment and please drop that review. Lastly, if there's a topic you want me to cover, I want to hear from you. Reach out because this podcast is for you and I'm here to serve. Until next time, stay boss-minded.